welcome back, artists, to At Home with APS, the summer edition. And I'm Mrs. O'Neill, and I want to greet you again. Hopefully you've been here for the past couple of weeks and you remember our greeting. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to say all of it, my part and your part together, and then we'll do it together. So I like to say, I am so glad to see you today. And then you guys at home respond and say, we're so glad to be here. So here we go. I am so glad to see you today. Oh, yes, I'm so glad. You guys are glad to be here watching me, learning more art. Yay, makes my heart feel great. So today we're going to start off by reading a book. And the book is going to give you a clue today about what the art project will be. Okay, so here we go. The name of our book today is My School's a Zoo. And it's written by Stu Smith, illustrated by David Catrow. Oh, I love that illustrator. He's so awesome. So, My School's a Zoo. Yesterday's trip to the zoo left me feeling rather strange, like my life was somehow different, or just about to change. Oh, look at that giraffe reaching in to grab his blanket. My parents didn't look the same. I watched them snort and drool. My sister ate my homework. I'm glad it's time for school. As I climbed aboard the bus, my heart began to race. The driver waved his hairy arms with a banana on his face. Animals crammed in every seat. Where'd all the people go? There has to be an answer. I'll bet Miss Wright will know. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not sure if I want to get on that bus. I ran into my classroom, but my teacher wasn't there. I would have told the sub if she hadn't been a bear. There were beehives in my desk and lizards at my feet. A goat ate all my pencils. There were needles on my seat. Ouch, don't sit on that porcupine. By the time I got to art class, there was nothing I could do. There were pythons on the ceiling, wreaking havoc with the glue. Ooh, that's way too much glue. Computer lab was crazy. The mice were eating slugs. The computers didn't work on account of all the bugs. Look at all those bugs. I don't think I would go into the computer lab. I tried to call for help, but a yak was on the phone. The principal was useless. He was gnawing on a bone. What animal is that? Yep, it's a tiger. The librarian caught me hiding, and she threw me quite a look. As I glanced around the room, I noticed worms in every book. The lunchroom sure was crowded, and the aides looked pretty mean. The lions and the wildebeest were causing quite a scene. The lobster in my lunchbox snapped its claws up in the air. A vulture watched me patiently so he could take his share. Lots of different kinds of animals so far. The turtles on the playground were spinning down the slide, while hyenas laughed in chorus as a hippo took a ride. That's super funny. And look, there's a turtle attached to the hippo's tail. Oh, we can't see it. Right there. I love that part. And the turtle's taking a ride on the hippo. Music class was noisy. A penguin led our band. The ostrich missed his cue, and the monkey slammed his hand. I was feeling kind of nauseous, so I went to see the nurse. But judging by her awful fangs, I thought she'd make things worse. There were starfish on my papers and a beaver cleaning the boards. The seal clapped 2 erasers, while a fox gave out awards. The bus ride home was dreadful. The skunks made quite a stink. Did the zoo trip cause this mess? I closed my eyes to think. The next thing that I knew, the driver tapped my hand. Things seemed back to normal, with my sister eating sand. I sure hope that our next trip to the dinosaur display won't have the same effect as the zoo trip did today. But that could never happen. The dinosaurs are gone. At least I think they are. Then again, I could be wrong. And what do you think is going to happen? Oh, look, in his dreams, he's dreaming already of dinosaurs. Cool. So, now that we've heard our story, we need to kind of put our thinking caps on, our imagination, right? Just like the boy in the story. So here we go. Get your hands ready. Start on the top of your ears, pull it down. Get ready to think. Oh yeah, sometimes I even close my eyes when I do that. Let's try it one more time. Hands on the top. Pinch and pull down. Get those thinking caps on. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready to think, use my imagination. Now tell me, what do you think the lesson has to do with today? Yeah, you guys are right. The zoo. So, we are going to turn our rooms into a zoo. Are you guys ready to do that? Good. Okay. So, what I would like you guys to do first is we need to get an idea of zoo animals and what they look like and all the different animals that are available. We looked at some in our story. My school is a zoo. My school's a zoo, right? All different kinds of animals, an elephant, birds, hippos. So I have some animals for us to look at. Here we go. All right, so have an elephant. And then, oh yeah, what is this animal? Yeah, right, it's a giraffe. And, I really like going to the zoo to see this animal. It's a lion, right? Because a lot of times when I do go to the zoo, I hear the lion roaring, and it's like so incredible to actually hear an actual lion giving that roar. Oh, it's like nothing you've heard before. Oh, and what's this animal? Yeah, it's a cheetah. Put that over here. And then we have a striped animal that we haven't seen before. What do you think it's going to be? Yeah, right. It's a tiger. And Ooh, I have an animal that is in the water most of the time. Sometimes it's out of the water. Yeah, it's a seal. And there's another animal that likes to go in the water, and it's huge. It doesn't seem like it moves very well on land, but it moves really fast in the water. Do you guys know what it is? It's a hippopotamus. Right. And there you go. I just have a few of those animals for us to look at. So, now that we have some ideas of animals, what I'd like you guys to do is think about your favorite animal. It doesn't have to be one of these animals that I showed you. Maybe at home you have a book that shows animals, like I do, and you can look through a book to get an idea of what the animal looks like in all the different parts. So that's another option. I could pick a bird if I wanted to. There's lots of birds at the zoo. Okay. So get an animal in your head. Okay, I'm gonna think. I'm gonna close my eyes, think about it, my favorite animal. Okay, I got it. Got the animal I wanna use for my art project today. So, how are we gonna make our animals? Well, we're gonna be drawing, and so when I'm drawing animals, I'm gonna think a lot about organic lines and shapes. So if I pick up an animal like the giraffe, I'm gonna think about lines and shapes. Because when I look at an animal, do I see a bunch of straight lines or geometric shapes that I can name? No, not really, because they're like us. They're kind of soft and curved. So I'm gonna think about those shapes and lines, like curved lines, circles, ovals, those kinds of lines and shapes I'm going to think about when I'm making my animal. Okay. So to help us also to get started to make our art project today, we're going to look at a style of art. Because when we're artists and we're just learning, we look at all different types of art out there so that we can figure out how we want to make our art. So we're going to do that today. Okay. All right. Let me move my chair. So we're going to look at the Amante art. Well, what does that word Amante mean? Well, Amante is a type of bark paper that is manufactured in Mexico and dates back to the 75 CE. The use of Amante paper was for communication, records, and rituals during the early time periods. In modern times, like right now, the Amate paper is used for paintings or decorative work. Artists use the paper to paint symbols, animals, or scenes related to their culture. So here are some examples of that Amate bark paintings. So when I look at them, I'm going to say, okay, how does art help us understand the culture of people? Remember I said that it comes from Mexico. So we're going to think about Mexican culture. And when I look at the artwork, I get some ideas about what their culture is about. So you guys look at these two different paintings and think, what do you see? What do you think they are showing about their culture? I'm going to look at it too. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you guys have some ideas. So, what are some things that you notice about it that are the same? I agree. The first thing that I notice is color and how both of them have really nice, bright, vibrant color in the art. What else do you notice that's similar? Yeah, I see that too. I see lots of organic lines, shapes, flowers, foliage, which means like plants. See that in both of them? Awesome. One is a little bit different than the other. One has animals only. The other one is showing some animals and also a symbol, which is representing the Mexican culture. All right. So I'm going to show this painting because we are going to draw from the Amante bark painting and think about that and take some of those elements and the style of the art and use it in our artwork today. And the art that I see here, I'm noticing something all around the edges. What do you guys think that is? Yeah, that's a border. And I'm noticing that it repeats itself all the way around. Right, we call that a pattern. It could be something very simple with just the same line going all the way around, trying to be the same size, same color, all the way around. Or it can get a little more complicated. You're going to have to decide what you want to do as the artist at home. Okay, so let's get started. Some of the things that you're going to need today, I'm going to show you. So you're going to need a paper bag. So if you have, like I have, paper bag from the grocery store, well, guess what? I cut out one side, okay? We're going to need that today. So you might need some scissors for that. The Amante bark paintings, you can use paint. You can, a lot of the artists use oil pastels, but guess what? I didn't have any oil pastels. So what else can I use to make my art today? Well, I could use crayons. I can use colored pencils. I could use sidewalk chalk as well. So I'm going to show you an example of mine because at home I didn't have any paint. So I made an example for you out of sidewalk chalk. Pretty cool. It still has nice vibrant colors. I really liked how they stood out. Yeah. So if you have some chalk at home, that's a good thing to use. Today, I'm going to use the colored pencil so we can kind of compare the different materials, medium that I could be using to make my art. Okay, I'm going to leave that up here for us to look at. So, oh yeah, I'm going to just flip back. I need to put my mat down. I'm going to go back so I can show my document camera for just a minute for the first part. So, I said we are going to use, oh, I forgot one thing. Sharpie, or a permanent marker. It's really kind of a good thing to use for this to outline or to make parts of your art stand out. And I'll show you how to use that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to use the colored pencils today. And guess what? if you don't have any of that and you happen to have some markers, markers work well too. So there's all kinds of options. Explore what you have at home and see how you can make your art. So I'm gonna take my paper bag, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crumple it up into a big, tight ball. Yeah. All right, so here it is. And it's all kind of uneven. And the reason why we're crumpling it up, because it's bark paper, it has lots of texture to it. So I don't want it flat. I want to create that texture. So now I'm going to kind of iron it out, get that little piece off of there. And maybe I might want to make those crinkles kind of stand out. Like on my paper, my example that I did, I painted it first with some water, and I only had brown paint when I was doing it. You can use watercolor paints, but you want to use a lot of water. So I'm going to pour a lot of water in my container. And then I'm just going to squirt, I found a little bit of black, just a little squirt of black. This just adds an extra element to your art. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush. I'm going to make big strokes all over it. And it's kind of wet, which is fine. And if you notice that the black paint really goes into those creases that I created when I crumpled it up. And I want that. So I'm going to paint the whole thing with a little bit of my black paint, a lot of water. And as I told you, I used brown. Brown works well too. Maybe all I have is watercolor and I don't have any black watercolor and I could use brown, because that's what I used. I used watercolor and I used brown watercolor on there. So I'm going to paint the whole thing, edges everywhere. All right. And it's a good thing that it's summertime, because now you can set this like somewhere where it's sunny, in the sun, maybe even outside if it's not too windy and blows away, because you got to let that dry. There's little puddles of black paint and water. I'm going to leave that, but if you have some paper towels and you want to sop that up a little bit so it helps it dry a little faster, that's up to you. Okay, so I'm going to set that over there. That's one thing you can do to create your texture for your bark paper. And I'm going to show you right here. I use the brown the brown paint on my brown paper. It doesn't stand out quite as well, but it still looks good. So what if I don't have any paint, don't have any watercolors, don't have any tempera or acrylic? That's okay too. You don't have to paint it. So I'm going to take another paper bag, crumple it up. Ugh. Yeah. And then have to lie it flat. And I'm going to switch my board. Oh, here we go. All right. Because now I want to think about, I'm going to look at some examples again of the Amante bark paintings. And I'm going to think about elements and the style that they have and to make my own art. Okay. I'm going to use the table. I want it to go a little bit flatter. There we go. And so, if you notice, the edges on this one is a little bit more straight. You can leave yours like that, or like this one, it's kind of a jagged edge. I personally like that jagged edge part. So that's what I'm gonna do with my paper. I'm going to take the edge and kind of rip it. I'm gonna hold my fingers right along where I'm ripping. I don't wanna rip too much. Just wanna make it look a little bit more interesting for me. And remember, you don't want to do this if you painted your paper. You want to wait for it to dry completely because it just won't rip very well. Okay. If I'm ripping and I'm really keeping my fingers together, it really helps control my rips. Don't want my fingers far apart because then it can go where I don't really want it to rip. Okay, I'm almost done with this side. I'm going to keep going back and forth. There we go. Now I'm going to put it up. So, like right there with my tape, try to flatten it out a little bit more. So I'm going to think about placement of my art. Remember, I told you to think about your favorite animal, your favorite zoo animal. I had mine in my head. Okay, so I've decided to do an elephant. Before, I did a bird. I like birds. I'm excited about birds these days, but I'm going to do something different and do an elephant. You guys get to pick yours. What are you going to do? Oh, cool. I like your ideas. All right. So how am I going to start? Well, I'm going to think about the outside edge first, and I'm going to build my art from the outside kind of in. So I used a pencil first. You can use a pencil, or you can, for my bird drawing, I took the sidewalk chalk, and I used a white piece of sidewalk chalk to kind of sketch out where I wanted to place everything. So you can use a pencil, but I figured you probably can't see me right with a pencil, so I'm just going to start with my Sharpie. But I suggest, again, for you guys to start with either the chalk or a pencil, because if you happen to make mistakes, it's easy to erase it or change it. So I'm going to start with a pattern on the outside edge. And remember, I'm thinking about organic kind of lines. I'm freehanding. I don't need to use any rulers. I don't want it to be super duper straight. I want to just have it move nicely. So here I go. I'm just going to start with a nice curved line on the edges. You kind of have to be careful a little bit because the creases of that paper bag sometimes get you a little caught. So go slow when you're going over where the bag comes together. I think that's a very simple, just a line. I think I'm going to add to my pattern just a little bit. I'm going to add some sort of like teardrops in the corners. Remember, a pattern means that everything should be just about the same size, same shape. So I really want to look back when I'm making the same thing to make it look the same. Just about the same size as I can, close as I can. Maybe I'll add some nice circles along with my curved line. Remember, I don't want to get crazy and go too fast and start making really big circles or really sloppy small circles. Remember, you're trying to make everything the same size, same shape, and later it's going to be the same color. Great. I like to keep it kind of simple. You can add more and make it more complicated. Remember, it's your art, it's up to you. So now I'm ready to start drawing my animal. So I have, it kind of cut it off a little bit, but that's okay. So there's a website. It's called Art Projects for Kids. It's this great art teacher who has different how to draw different animals. And if you go on that to help you, that's great. If you don't have that and you have a book at home and that's going to help you look at the animal as you're drawing, that's a good reference. Okay. So remember we said we were going to use some shapes to draw our animal? So when I'm looking at my elephant, I'm really thinking the body is a nice big circle or oval-ish shape. So I started with that, and then I build my elephant with different types of lines and shapes and connected those. I kind of sketched that out on my brown paper already, but I wanted to show you what I did up here on the board on how I built my elephant. Because then once you start building and working with those shapes, then you can erase some lines. Notice how we started with this oval and built the head off of that, and then the ears and the legs. And then we got rid of some lines that we didn't need. We don't want to draw all those extra lines in our animal. Okay. So I'm going to do that up here on my art. I'm just going to, now that I have the basic elephant, I'm going to take my Sharpie and go over it with my Sharpie over my pencil marks. Remember, again, if there's something you didn't like with your pencil and you're using your Sharpie, can you change it? Yeah, that's right, you can. Once I sketch out my animal, or you sketch out your animal, make sure you're going pretty slow with your Sharpie. Just so, because you can't erase those marks. And if it doesn't look perfect, oh well. That'll add to your artwork. Because the paper is a little bumpy, because we've added that texture to it. Oh. And see, look at what I did. I wasn't paying attention, and I added that line with the trunk and the tusk. Oh well, that's okay. And then here's another ear behind. Wait, oh, I need to add the leg that's behind. And then the tail. add the little nail part on their feet. Maybe some lines to show some texture on their skin, because elephants are a little wrinkly. And here's the eye. All right, I think that's just the way I like it. So now I'm going to show you how to add some color. I'm gonna put it back on the document camera. I think I'm gonna leave the tape on there so I can put it up later. Oh, cool. That does fit nicely. Okay. So I wanted to show you just a couple of things, just different, if you have different materials, different medium to use to make your art. I wanted to use the colored pencils today. Elephants are kind of a grayish color, and so maybe I'll take a light gray. I don't have a lot, I'm missing some colors in my art here. I mean, in my colored pencil case. So maybe you could make it a different color. Doesn't have to be the same color as an elephant actually is. So I'm going to pull out some colors, and then I'm going to also show you what it looks like with the chalk. So when you're working with the colored pencils, you do want to kind of make them lie down, because you don't want it on its tip to make all those lines like that. I don't really like that. I kind of want it to look a little smoother. So I'm going to make my pencil lie down. I'm going to put my finger on top of the tip of the pencil. So then it makes a nice, smooth, even color. And I can color in pretty quickly for my elephant with that gray. Can't see it too well on the document camera, so I'm going to show you with the chalk. I really kind of like the chalk. I think I even like it better than the colored pencils, but a lot of times people don't have chalk, so that might not be an option for you at home. So I kind of like, I can't really see that very well either, but see, I'm going to tilt it so you can see that a little bit better, and the color. Kind of like the way it's added some texture in there. I could leave that, or I could take my finger with the chalk and blend that in and push it down into those creases a little bit more. And I don't have a gray marker, but you could maybe even use a marker. Maybe you wanted to make your elephant brown. So I could use a marker. Markers work well too, just to kind of give you some ideas of the different medium that you can use in order to color your animal in. So once I've colored in my animal, then I'm going to think about adding some color to the different pattern that I have going around on the outside. Remember, what did I say? When you're adding color to your pattern, should everything be different or the same? Yeah, you're right. It should be the same. Same color everywhere. Okay. I like the orange. There we go. With all my little circles. And then I think I'm going to add, let's see, some yellow in the corners. That looks good for me. Remember, it's your art. You get to add color however you want to. Just remember, if you're making the pattern, it should all be the same color. Okay. All right. So I'm going to add, the chalk is really thick. I like the sidewalk chalk because it's so big. It makes it go so fast. So here I go. I'm just going to add some more. And what else I like is if I make a mistake, and I could cover it up with the sidewalk chalk. Because chalk is really great that way. So I'm going to color in my elephant. Oh, that's right. And the tusks of the elephant are white. So I'm going to take out my white chalk. And guess what? That line that I made a mistake on, it disappeared. That's pretty cool. It even disappeared over the Sharpie. So now I'm going to go back up and put my art up here. Okay, get my chair out of the way so I don't trip. Because I forgot something. I'm going to go back. Because in art, when you're making art, you kind of want to go back and forth. Like, you need to stop. You need to look at your art. You need to look at where you're getting your example from, information from, so my style from. So I'm going to go back and look at that. I have my border. I like that. I have my animal. What else do I need? Yeah, I need to add some things around my elephant. They have lots of flowers and plant life. It doesn't have to be that. You could be thinking about things that are at the zoo with your animal, and you could add that to your scene. That would be pretty cool. I'm going to use my chalk because I didn't show you what else you can do with the chalk and the Sharpie. So I'm going to use my chalk and just kind of add, I kind of like having a flower. So I'm going to pretend like there's like a vine. So I'm going to add sort of a green sort of stem next to the elephant on this side, and maybe another one coming in from this side. And then I'm going to make a flower. I think I'll use red and yellow. I think I'll use red for the middle. I like making the center part first. And then I'm going to use yellow to make the petals. And when you're using chalk, if you happen to use that, and Sharpies or pretty much anything, you don't really want to rest your hand on your artwork. Notice how I'm picking up my hand. I'm using my fingers to kind of brace myself so that I'm not smearing and rubbing and getting things all messy. So then I'm going to make my petals coming off of the center of my flower. It's a little challenging. And guess what? That's okay, because I'm going to show you a little trick, because the sidewalk chalk, that if you have that and you're using it, it's kind of chunky and big, which I do like, but sometimes it's hard to make things small, which is okay, because I'll show you what we're going to do to make things stand out. Okay, I think I need to add something to my stem. I'm just going to add a little light green on top because it was kind of a bluish green and maybe some petals coming off of it. That's kind of cool. All right, so now it kind of blended in a little bit when I was making it. So what do I do to make things stand out a little bit more? Well, let's use my Sharpie. So if you use the chalk to make all your stuff like I did, then I went back in with my Sharpie to make things stand out. So that's what I'm gonna do with my flowers. I'm gonna go right next to where my chalk is to outline the parts of my flower and the stem. Come over here, do the same thing. I'm really trying not to go too much on top of the chalk because then it gets kind of all on your Sharpie and it's hard to work, which is okay because then you can just take it, just kind of get a scrap piece of paper, clean it off, and reuse it. So I got a bunch of chalk on that, so I'm going to get rid of that so it works better for my petals. And notice how they're standing out now. So there are two different ways you can do it. You can use a pencil and then go back in with your Sharpie first, like I did today. Or, like I'm doing right now, and I did for my example, you can start with the chalk and then outline with your Sharpie. Great. So then, now I'm going to look at my art. I always encourage kids to stop. Take a look at what you're doing. Maybe put it back away from you. A lot of times you're up really close and you're really not sure what the whole thing looks like. So I want to take a step back. I want to look at my art. See if I need to add anything. Do I want to do anything else to it? Are there any empty spaces? Hey, could I add color for the background behind and all around the elephant? That would be pretty cool. You could do that. It doesn't have to be all plain brown. You could add some color to it. So let's look at just some examples of kids that have done the same kind of project, what their art looks like. I see the patterns that they started with and the animals. Some of them used birds or different kinds of animals, adding the plant life that goes along with that animal. And I really love the texture that's happening as they crumpled up the paper and used it. Yeah. I love how they're all so different, but there's a lot of very similar qualities to all of them. It's really cool. So, I'm going to ask another question now. So, have I used my Amante bark painting in the style for my artwork? Yeah, I did. I used the texture of the bark paper and I crumpled it up. I used some pattern. I used lots of organic lines and shapes to make my art. And so how have I brought some of my own culture into my art? Let's think about that. Well, I love working with organic flowers, nature, so that's part of who I am and what I've grown up with. So adding the flower elements for me was part of who I am and my culture. So maybe you can think about what's around you, and maybe you can add that into your art to make it your own. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I hope you guys are thinking and inspired to create your room into a zoo and bring some of the zoo animals and draw them into that Amante style of painting. Think about the materials that you have at home and what is it you're going to use. Are you going to use chalk? Are you going to use colored pencils? Maybe you have markers. Maybe you have paint. You could also paint. That's right. Yeah. So, what else can we... I hope I've got your thinking caps on, and maybe you have a book at home to help you get inspired and think of some animals that you could be doing to make your room like a zoo. And once you're done with one, because at a zoo, there's not just one animal, there's lots of them. That's why I'm thinking your room could be a zoo, because you could do more than just one animal. Like me, Mrs. O'Neill, I did a bird, and then I did my elephant. Get another paper bag, pick a different animal. I was really thinking about doing a giraffe because I really love giraffes, and they have cool pattern and marking on their fur and long necks, lots of really distinctive parts to the giraffe. So maybe the giraffe is what you want. Or maybe, the lion, and make that cool lion's mane. You don't have to necessarily do the whole animal. Maybe you just do part of it. Maybe part of your animal doesn't fit in the whole piece of paper that you have. Have fun with your art. Be creative. Think, how can I make it my own? How can I use part of the style that Mrs. O'Neill showed me? And how can I do it to make it so that it's me and showing my artistic skills? And if things aren't working out the way you want, erase, start over, show it to somebody at home. Maybe you have then an older person at home that you can show it to, and you can say, hey, what do you think about my art? What do you think it is? What do you like about it? What do you think I could change? That's always a good conversation to have. It's really important to talk about your art with the people around you and get their ideas and thoughts about how you're making your art. Maybe you want to listen to them and say, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I could change something for next time. Or, I really like it the way I did it, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. Remember, you're the artist. You get control over your art and how you're going to make things. And if things aren't going quite right, guess what? You got to keep trying. It's just like anything else where you keep working at it and it turns out the way you want it to turn out. So, I just want to say thank you for joining us today for the At Home with APS Summer Edition, and I hope to see you next week.